Hi, Sarah.
What were we just doing?
Watching episode 1 of season 3 of Prison Break, which
For the very first time.
For the very first time. No, I mean, I'd never read a summary of it. I'd never certainly read a script or seen an episode. So this is very exciting.
This is brand new.
This has gone from a rewatch podcast to a
watch
podcast.
A watch podcast that is also brought to you by Hulu.
Oh, yeah. Hulu's sponsoring us this season. I don't know if you can tell.
That's so nice of them. That's so very nice of them. And actually, it works out well for us because it's the only place you can see the show now.
I also want to be clear because we're going to touch on this quite often.
Right.
I personally didn't not watch the show out of any. I was just very consumed with being on private practice at that point. And
you were not a doctor. You played one on TV.
I was a doctor. I was not a doctor. I played one on TV, including doctoring one of the people that was in this episode. But we can get into that later. But I just. I don't even know if I watched all of season 2 when it was on.
I did not.
Yeah.
I did not.
I definitely watched all of season 1, but I think by season 2, I was like, I don't want to watch myself.
Yeah, it's going to make yourself crazy.
Mm-hmm. But boy, that was an exciting episode of television.
I'll tell you what, my overwhelming feeling is one of relief because I was going to bed last night and I was like, what if I hate it? What if we watch episode 1 and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, I think it's okay to talk about this. According to the internet, it does not seem to be a fan favorite season. I think it was such a radical.
I think it depends who you talk to. Yeah.
It's such a radical paradigm shift from 1 and 2.
It's a totally different show.
Mm.
I mean, there's more new characters than there are returning characters.
Wow, good point.
It feels like that could be wrong, and just the sheer number of extras. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Makes it feel that way.
Extras, yeah.
Don Olmstead is going to be our guest today.
The wonderful
Dawn
Olmstead
was, I think, one of the first people I met involved in the show.
Same.
Because she was in my callback audition.
She was in my callback audition as well.
Yeah. So. You want to explain a little bit about who Dawn is? You actually know her better than I do.
Dawn, at that moment, she was Dawn Peruse.
Yep.
And she's a very brilliant and tough producer who's been at it forever. Got her start at SNL, I believe.
I think that's right. Yeah.
And then she and Marty Adelstein, no relation, had a company called Adelstein Peruse, which produced Prison Break. I think they will get this from her, but my understanding is they had the idea, they brought in Shuring, they brought it to Fox. I may have gotten all that wrong.
They had the idea. Oh, I'm excited to talk to Dawn about that.
I may be wrong. Okay. But this is back in the days when producers would develop and then kind of bring to studios and develop. I mean, I guess maybe that still happens. Anyway, she did that for Prison Break was obviously a huge success. And then Dawn ended up marrying Matt Olmstead, who was one of the head writers who we've interviewed on the show. So that's a wonderful little story. I will also say, on just for Paul history, Dawn then ended up going to
Girlfriend's Guide, right?
Well, Universal. So she was at what they call UBC, right? UCP, Universal
UCP. Cable Productions.
Universal Cable Productions, where she produced a bunch of shows, Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce being one of them, so we worked together again. And then she was head of UCP, president of UCP, when we developed Imposters. And so she was running that. So she's been my boss quite a lot. And we developed another show together with my partner, Adam Brooks.
Amazing.
Based on the Bible. And didn't go any, it didn't. And then, so I've known her forever. And we look forward to talking to her. She is just a fascinating.
She's a
powerhouse person who has amazing insights. And we'll talk more about how great Dawn is later. But one of the things I love about Dawn is that she's so down to earth and smart about Hollywood. I think a lot of people kind of, I don't know. Yeah. They change as people. She's just like straight shooter, always has been.
And she's also producing the reboot. And she's one of the very few people involved in the original show who's involved in the reboot. So we may pepper her with questions she may or may not be willing to answer. We'll see. Okay, so let's get into our first Callistein Index. You want to take us?
Yes,
Take us away?
the Callistein Index for season 3. The first episode of season 3 is called Orientacion, which Sarah and I are pretty sure means orientation.
Yeah.
It first aired September 17th, 2007, which was on a Monday. Interesting. At 8 p.m., it was written by series creator Paul Shearing, directed by producing director Kevin Hooks. Kevin directed 14 episodes of the series, more than anyone else besides Bobby Roth, who just eked him out by directing 15. Season premiere drew 7.51 million U.S. viewers against the competition of Deal or No Deal on NBC. It beat out repeats of How I Met Your Mother on CBS, Wife Swap. Different show.
That's some
on
AI
ABC.
nastiness.
Yep. ESPN had on Monday Night Football in that time slot, pulling in 11.6 million viewers.
Sorry. You just said Monday Night Football. I heard Mennonite Football.
Mennonite Football,
and had
which is amazing.
the most amazing Wife Slop and Mennonite Football.
Yeah, I mean,
2 shows I want to see.
Reality TV had really gone off the rails at that point. It's a lot of counter programming to compete with. 7.51 million is quite a lot.
To orient us in history, the number 1 song in the U.S. music charts that week was "Crank That" by Soulja Boy.
Right.
The night before this episode premiered was the 59th annual Emmy Awards. Sopranos won for Best Drama. 30 Rock won for Best Comedy.
30 Walk.
30 Walk. That's
show
30
too.
Ewoks.
Yeah.
You guys, we're just coming up with all the. We're going to pitch all these shows to Dawn, by the way. Mennonite Football, we're going to sell
She's
it.
going to, in her Dawn way, politely say, no.
Oh, no.
No.
And in business news, on this day, former internet powerhouse America Online, otherwise known as AOL, announced that it was going to lay off 40% of its workforce.
40%. So this is after the AOL Warner Brothers merger that didn't work? Yeah, I would imagine.
I think so. I don't remember.
Okay, to bring you briefly up to speed on where season 2 ended, Kellerman testified at Sarah's trial, resulting in her exoneration of her, Michael, and Lincoln. It got Kellerman shot in the back of a van, which we don't actually see, but it implied that he is dead and moving on to his new life as a pediatrician, which, of course, in prison break means he might be gone, but he might not. Michael and Lincoln are double-crossed by Mahone, who's double-crossed by Kim, but they've all set up Mahone for possession of cocaine, and he ends up being arrested. Michael falsely confesses to killing Agent Kim in an effort to protect Sarah, who he reunited with just long enough for one of them to commit a felony. Gosh.
Reunited and it feels so
bad.
bang.
Lincoln is a free man. Sarah vanishes into the wind as Michael, Mahone, Teabag, and Bellick all end up as inmates at a prison called Sona. And that's where we ended season
Dear God.
2.
Okay, and we pick things up with things having gone about as badly for Brad Bellick as it's possible. So to recap this week's season 1 premiere, Sona turns out to be a prison in Panama that's run entirely by the inmates. Lechero is the leader inside.
Played by Robert Wisdom.
Brilliantly. He's jealous of Michael's reputation. He sets Michael up to fight another inmate to the death, as opposed to the pain, which is a Princess Bride reference. Mahone defends Michael in the fight and kills the inmate, which is pretty cool. On the outside, Lincoln goes to the American consulate to try and get Michael out of prison. It looks like that's going to work for a little bit. He looks for Sarah. He sets up a meeting with somebody he thinks has information about his son. It turns out he's been set up. That's a member of the company who meets him instead. I believe that turns out to be Gretchen / Susan B. Anthony. I'm not sure what that name thing is about. And she tells him that Lincoln and LJ and Sarah have been kidnapped and they're being held ransom until Michael breaks a man out of Sona named Whistler.
Wow. Okay.
Let's take a quick break.
Okay, we'll be right back. Before we dive back into today's episode, a quick reminder, every episode of Prison Break is streaming only on Hulu. Relive the iconic edge-of-your-seat drama that's literally responsible for our podcast's existence.
And it holds up after all these years. Michael Scofield's elaborate plan to save his brother from death row, still one of the most jaw-dropping plots in TV history.
And the beauty is you can watch it however you want. Start from episode 1 and experience the epic story unfolding from the very beginning, or skip straight to your favorite season. If you're looking for a recommendation, many say season 3 is criminally underrated. Let's find out.
There's a reason we're still talking about this show 20 years later. From the unforgettable twists and legendary characters to the nail-biter drama. Watch it all on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply. We have a few things to talk about before we bring Dawn on. Maybe first we should talk about the obvious thing, which is that I'm not in the season, and that was not a plan that I was aware of. But here's all I know. So I got pregnant halfway through season 2. We end the season. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, can't wait to meet the baby. See you next year. I got a call during hiatus that they needed somebody to go do a press tour in Spain, someplace else, maybe the UK, a couple European cities, to help launch the second season of the show. And my doctor was like, this is the last week you can travel. But I was like, sure, we'll go. So my husband and I went. We had a great time. The night before we were flying out, I remember we were at my uncle's house in Wimbledon, in the UK. We'd stopped by to spend a couple days with family. And I was like maybe 7 months pregnant at that point. And I remember my agent calling and was like, hey, business affairs at Fox wants to know, or 20th, I don't remember who the business affairs people are, but the business affairs wants to know, are you taking maternity leave? And at this point, it had to have been May, I want to say. And the show was due to go back. We always started shooting again, like around 4th of July. And I was like, yeah. And the baby was due July 14th.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, California labor law gives me, I think it was 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And I was like, yeah, I plan on taking that maternity leave because that seems like an insanely short amount of time to spend with a brand new baby and, you know, lose the baby weight and whatever. But I was like, yeah. And they were like, great, we'll let them know. We fly home. I land back in BC. And if memory serves, it was the next day that they called and they were like, they're not picking your option up for next season. And I was like, what? Like, it was the first I had heard from anybody that there was any possibility of me not returning. And in fact, several of the writers were like, we'll see you next year.
Is there bad blood?
None. Not that I was aware of. I mean,
Okay. I'm not
the only thing I ever heard from anybody was, can't wait to meet the baby. Like, congratulations.
Okay.
The weird chain of events, I do remember they were like, they're not picking your option up. And I was like, okay. And a part of me is like, well, now I can just have a baby and not worry about immediately going back to work. Like, I'll be honest, I didn't give it a ton of thought. And then a couple of weeks later, they were like, well, they want you to come
do 1 or 2
shoot an episode of, like, I don't remember what it was, but it was like you're kidnapped and you're tied to a chair and you're like whatever. And I was like,
begging Michael to help you. And
that's a hard no. Because at that point, enough time had gone by that, like, now I'm 8 months pregnant. And I was like, I can't fly. And I think they offered to come to me. And I was like, guys, I remember thinking, like, the mindset you'd have to put yourself in is really terrified and messed up. And
Not
I was
good.
like, I don't want to bring this into my house. I don't want to bring this into my body. And I remember Wentworth calling me back at that point. Because he called me when he was like, when he heard that I wasn't coming back to the show. And he was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I am, actually. You know, like, people lose jobs. Like, you know, I'm moving on. And then he called to be like, I heard you're not going to sort of bend over and let them kill you off. And I was like, I mean, I'm growing a baby. And he was like, no, I love this. He's like, I love this. If I love it for you, I love it for me. And I was like, okay, thanks. And I kind of put it out of my mind. I mean, I'm having my first kid. You said you had a story. We were doing our rewatch.
Yeah, some
on Hulu. By the way, All's Fair is also on Hulu, which you said you're in for like a second.
I was in it. I shot like
I
shot a few days on it, and I got cut. But that's fine. They ended up. Me and Jennifer Jason Leigh played there's like a couple in every episode, and they kind of tell their whole story and why they're getting divorced. And then we shot a couple scenes, and then there's all this flashback stuff, like 25 years of like us meeting.
Wait, did they use that computer program on your face?
And we were like, are they going to use the computer program on our face? And they were like, we don't really know yet. And then the next thing we knew, they were casting 25-year-olds to play.
So even the scene where you're meeting, it's gone?
We never shot that. We
shot
shot us now like in therapy and
Gotcha.
breaking up. We didn't shoot. So
is that in All's Fair?
I have not seen it. I know my name is in the credits, and I had a lot of friends be like, you weren't in it. I was like, okay.
Oh, all right.
Well, fun,
moving on.
Yeah.
You said two things. One, that you doctored a character who appeared in this episode.
So in episode 1, Cullen Douglas, who...
The guy I kept calling Gollum?
Correct.
Yep.
Who Belloc kind of befriends, who then gets murdered in the yard. He had a long arc on Private Practice, which would kind of come, and then I think even in the next season he would come back, and he played a pedophile that Amy Brenneman's character Violet is treating as a psychiatrist, and Cooper as a pediatrician is like no. And then there's a kid who I end up treating, who had been abused by him.
Oh my God.
And I just remember choking him out in a hospital.
Huh.
Yeah. And then I think he ends up, I don't
Kicking
remember.
The baba?
I believe he ends up unalive. I think maybe he unalives himself. I don't remember.
He unalives himself.
Really nice guy, though, and a really good actor.
It's interesting how you get to a certain point. I'm rewatching The Big C right now.
Oh, wow.
I'm watching it for the first time. And it is wild how many people I've worked with. I'm like, oh my God, there's Emmy Kinney. Oh my God, there's Polly Draper. Oh my God, there's Deborah Headwalt. Like, it is.
Yeah.
You do it long enough.
You do it long enough,
something,
and it is like.
And you're like, oh, I was married to him. Oh, I murdered her.
Oh,
she killed me. Yeah.
I know. It's
bunch of that.
I love that. I actually really love that.
I do too. It makes the business feel very cozy. You did mention Midnight Express.
Oh, Midnight Express. Just the visuals of this episode really remind me of Midnight Express, which is a famous movie. I think it was the first movie that Oliver Stone ever wrote, that got produced, directed by Alan Parker. It's a true story, amazing story about a kid in the 70s, like a 23-year-old going to Turkey and trying to smuggle hashish out and getting arrested and going to a Turkish prison. That's where the joke, if you've ever been to a Turkish prison, comes from. It is one of the most harrowing movies, and John Hurt is in it, playing a guy who's been there forever. And it's a true story about this guy and him escaping this Turkish prison after just horrific circumstances. And it's very much in a square. There's a lot of visual similarities, and I wonder if they referenced it. We'll have to ask.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Paul, or maybe even Dawn.
I do remember somebody saying that one of the writers or producer, it might have been Dawn, somebody found out during season 2 that there is this prison in South America or Central America someplace that Sona's based on. That's like the guards were just like,
and there's no guard. So the guards, basically, the idea of this season is they patrol the perimeter, and everything else is like you're on your own.
And they drop off. I mean, as we saw, they drop off like water and chickens, apparently. Unlimited supply of chicken feet going on up in and like gasoline and stuff. But that like they stop at the front door, and the rest is just a free for all.
And dump the bodies out once a week.
First, we should let people know we have fan questions for Dawn at the end. If you want to ask our guests fan questions, join our Patreon community, because this season, the way we're doing this is we will let our patrons know in advance who our guest is going to be, and they have an opportunity to ask them questions. So in addition to being able to watch the watch party episodes with us, which are very fun, and connect with our Discord community, who are the nicest people. So our guest this week.
Yes.
Kicking us off is one of the first people that we ever met on Prison Break, because she was in both of our callbacks. Dawn Olmstead produced Prison Break as part of Adelstein Peruse Productions. That's, again, no relation to Paul. She also worked with Paul on Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce and Imposters. She was the head of UCP Studios for several years. At the time, the only female head of a studio who oversaw both scripted and unscripted content. She also oversaw big, giant hits there, including Mr. Robot and Joe Exotic. She left UCP to run Anonymous Content, a powerhouse of a management company and studio, and is now an independent producer focused on Prison Break, with several projects coming up with her frequent producing partner, Charlize Theron, including an upcoming film and high-profile projects at our sponsor, Hulu. Without further ado,
ladies and gentlemen, Don Olmstead.
Don Olmstead.
Hey,
Hi, Don.
It's Don Olmstead.
Hi,
Ladies
guys.
and gentlemen, television's Don Olmstead.
Television's Don Olmstead. We were saying that we both think the first time we met you was in our callbacks for Prison Break. I remember mine was casting director John Papsadera and amazing guy, and Marty Adelstein, no relation to me, and Don Olmstead.
But is that it? Because Ratner was in mine.
Ratner wasn't in mine.
Yeah, I don't think Ratner would would come and go.
This is the pilot director, Brett Ratner.
Yes. But John and I were pretty much in every single session. I think one time I had to go down to Point Pleasant for one session, but and just I'm sure you're equally want this corrected, but he's Adelstein. He's just
he is not.
He is Adelstein.
Oh,
I was his
clearly
partner.
No relation. Adelstein and Adelstein.
Yeah.
Oh, and then Lisa Edelstein. It's really just a clusterfuck.
I love all Adel somethings.
Yeah. Oh, I always thought he was. I always thought he was
You're
pronounced
very
the same
Adel
way.
I'm very Adel positive.
Okay, wait.
That's a little sharp to my ear. Yeah, go on.
Can we start at the beginning?
Yes.
Because, like I said, you were in both of our callbacks, and as far as I know, you know more about how this started than anyone we've talked to. Although we did talk to Sharing last season, or season 1. We're going to talk to him again this season. But can you give us the origin?
Yeah, give us the origin story.
Sure. There's a lot of people involved in this one that were involved in the first one. I had an overall with 20th. And at the time, I think I had like Point Pleasant on the air. And I was obsessed with prison, not for no logical reason. And
as a story area, as we say.
Yes, it's as a sort of like, I may wind up there. I should know as much as I can about it.
Not too late, by the way. 20 years on.
Late. I'm still studying. But I do think it was like when I was a kid. For anybody that was in New York, I think it was like WPIX would have a nighttime soap opera on that was from Australia called Cell Block H. Which was,
I remember it.
Stop it.
Yes. And it was an all-female, kind of like Switchblade Sisters-y. Like sometimes they had like go-go boots on. And, I was probably like 10.
Yeah.
And I was, a latchkey unwatched child of the 80s. And so I would watch it 100%. Until I'd heard that Fox may have the rights to it. And so I talked to everyone, and it turned out the rights were sitting in the late night department because it was a 5-episode a night. It was like Monday through Friday kind of thing.
Right.
So I had some meetings with the late night department, and I was like, I think you have the rights to Cell Block H, and they were like, we do. Anyway, so I was really excited that maybe I could adapt that. I was in a deal with 20th, which at the time was all together with Fox. They were still owned by Fox.
That was before the divorce.
And then it turned out for whatever reason, we couldn't do it. And so, but I still had Prison on the mind. I love Shawshank. And then 24 100%. Came out, and Dana Walden, who at the time was just the head of the studio, she's now running everything, but at that time I think she might have even still been the head of drama, or I think she was maybe head of the studio now. So then 24 came out and kind of broke the mold, and so I think that there was a little bit more like, hey, Dawn, like this,
you know that bullshit you've been working on?
Yeah. Like, you got any more of those
big
non-commercial weirdo ideas? And so we were, I had one development exec, Francette Kelly, and we were, talking. Prison was definitely like, I was like, prison. And she was like, came in and she's like, what about Prison Break? And I was like, oh yeah, but we just got to find like a way in. Almost every movie about prison is a prison break, right? So like, what's ours, right? And then a few weeks later, I went on a run in where I live, and which is weird because that's how I usually would come up with show ideas. And I really saw this whole thing where there was a white collar guy who was sitting in a tattoo chair, and back then, white collar guys, this was, 21 years ago, weren't,
no
getting full sleeves of tats. So I was thinking a lot about that. And while I was on this run, prior to this run, and I was on this run, I was like, oh, what if I had it as a best friend? What if my best friend, this character's best friend, was on death row and time had run out, and he had tried everything to get him, off death row, and because he believed he was innocent, and that what if he tattooed the prison plans onto his body and got himself into prison to get his best friend out, because he had exhausted all, and he wasn't just going to go let him die without, swinging. And so that was sort of the, sort of like the first thing that I had pitched to Dana Walden, and at the time, Jen Salke was the drama head.
Oh wow!
And Dana immediately was like, oh, I get that, and by this time I had thought about it a little bit, and I knew that in order to make it make sense to television at that time, it had to have something that could have an episodic engine. And I had really always loved the triptych from Hieronymus Bosch, which is Dante's Inferno. And when I had pitched it to them, I said, sort of would look like Hieronymus Bosch's Dante's Inferno, but underneath it all would be the actual plans. And I, pitched that you would zoom in on sort of like a little sort of maybe devil or an angel. But what was really underneath was step 1 or step 13 of what he needed to pull off this breakout. And so that's what the episode would sort of like be built on. That could be its purpose or its engine.
So cool.
And so she was like, you know what? Like, let's pursue that. And what that means at that point in an overall deal is that I started to talk to writers. So I must have pitched 35 writers.
Wow.
And a lot of feature writers, because I had these weird ideas that, smart TV people would be like, that's not a TV show. So I pitched a lot of like really notable screenwriters, and they kept saying the same thing. I love it. If you want to do it as a movie, come back to me. If you want to do it as a movie,
Sure.
and then I was like, kind of like going through, pitched it to a bunch of. Actually, there was a couple of writers who were working on my show Point Pleasant at the time, and I was just getting passes after passes, and it was Dana and Jen who said to me, you know what? Let's just walk. At the time, it was the lot. They were all on the same lot. Let's just walk across the lot and pitch it to Craig Erwick. And by this time, I had pitched it so many times that I had a lot of the meat of the first episode. And because I knew that we were kind of swimming uphill as far as them like seeing it as a TV show, I had 3 seasons sort of in my head. So went across, told them the pilot and the sort of like the tattoo and that being kind of the engine for the first season. And then I, briefly said, and second season is The Great Escape. And third season is Catch Me If You Can. I don't have much more than that, but that's what I have. And he said, great, we'll buy it, which then made it, I thought easier to find a writer because now it was a sold project at Fox, which
You
was
have a job.
You have a
paycheck.
job. This
I will
is a
pay you to write
paycheck
this. Yeah.
And they were, they had 24. They were, a network that if you had kind of cool things, you would want to go to at that time. Not to say that
Family
they're not
Guy.
that. Yeah, Family Guy, like all those, like they broke out with In Living Color, even just like the start of. So, but I still couldn't find a writer. They kept. So, meanwhile, Paul and I pitched Night Work. We had lots of meetings, and I think he would agree it was not going well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Happens.
But by this time, it was the end of pilot season. And back then, pilot season really started around July, pilot pitching season. But it kind of ended in October because you needed to hand in the script to be in consideration, basically by Christmas, because they were going to be picking up them to pilot somewhere around the end of January. So now we're in October. I have no writer. But luckily for both Paul and I, we were standing in the CBS parking lot. Paul, I think, thought the pitch went great. I sort of knew, like, there's no way they're buying it. But I had a blind script with Paul, which means for the audience, it means you are basically saying ahead of time, we are going to do a project together, and and the studio paid Paul to write something. And so I said, listen, at the off chance I get a call later today that this doesn't sell, I've sold a project. It's already at Fox, and we had done a script the year before, which didn't get picked up, didn't shoot, but they really liked Paul. And I said, let me pitch it to you. And so I pitched it from we open on a guy getting a tattoo and, all the way to the end. And he was like, I'll do it. But I don't believe friends would do that for each other. They've got to be brothers. And I'm like, fine, they're brothers. Are we in?
Wow.
And we basically shook on it in the parking lot. I called Craig and Dana and Jen and said, what about Paul? And they were like, yeah, that's great. And then we kind of rolled up our sleeves to get it, in on time because, it was crunch time. And then they didn't pick it up. They wouldn't shoot it. Paul wrote a great script and it was exactly what we had promised. It was one of those rare cases.
Right.
And they loved the script, but they wouldn't pick it up. They kept saying, I don't think it's a TV show. Maybe, and this went on for the next 7 or 8 months. So then they go pick up all their other shows. I wasn't the outlier, we'll pick up your weird thing at the end. This time they were saying, hey, you need to go get a director and like a notable director, maybe we'll make it a limited, well, they called it a mini series, and sell it for DVDs. So we need a big sellable thing for the DVDs, and the DVD guys weighed in. So we got a director. Actually, first we were in talks with Peter Jackson, and they couldn't make the deal happen, or for different reasons. And then, crazily enough, we were in talks, we meaning Gail Berman and Dana Walden, were in talks with Spielberg to do it.
I remember that.
Yeah.
And that didn't work out for deal, what the deal would be. And thank God. I mean, I would have loved any of them. So now, like, just time is going on, and, you always worry that something's going to be forgotten. Now we've missed pilot season.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the fall happens, and Lost comes on and is a juggernaut. Literally, I think it was a week later, we got picked up to pilot. So we shot off season, which was very rare at that time.
It was November, right?
Well, yeah, we started late November, really we shot all the way up to basically Christmas.
Yep.
As we were saying earlier, I was 6 months pregnant with Wesley. And we shot the pilot. Brett Ratner was the director. Dante Spinati, who was like an Academy Award winning, was the cinematographer, which was amazing.
Just a genius.
John Papsadera, who is one of the most amazing casting directors, cast it. So we were off season. We got a lot of, I think because John had done a lot of feature films and just had great taste. It was we had a great cast, and so we cast it. We shot the pilot, and then it was hard to get picked up. Until I'm forgetting his name, who came in, Peter Liguori came in, because they wanted to, before that, they wanted to do a lot of changes to the pilot. But then Gail was moving over to Paramount Pictures. She was leaving, and Peter Liguori came in, and he watched the pilot. And I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, because we had heard that there was going to be all sorts of changes. So Paul and I were like, so what did you think? We were in this big meeting where we were supposed to like really talk about all the notes that they had, but now there's a new boss, and he said, I did watch it. I watched it twice. I watched it with my wife, which usually I'm like, oh boy. Just because, like, oh my God, there's going to be all these other people weighing in. And he said, fuck me. That's the best pilot I've ever seen. And he said, the only thing I want is a second episode. I want to air it basically back to back, which at the time was more novel. And Paul and I were just like, we weren't in the meeting. We were like visually high-fiving. I'm like, finally, this long road. And then they were like, it needs to be on the air in August. And this was May.
Like March.
Yeah, I think it got picked up like in April. And then we were off to the races. Yeah.
Wow.
And for the people following along at home, one of the things that really surprises me time and time again about our business is how a really great project can die 1,000 times because people move jobs. Yeah. And, it's one of those things that I think behind the curtain, people don't know a whole lot about. But man, I mean, you can develop something and have such a wonderful team and shoot a terrific pilot. And then somebody moves over to another studio and the new person goes, no, it's not mine. I don't like it. And so your story strikes me as sort of like, for all of the amazing things that build up to make this happen, this last moment of someone new comes in and says, I don't want changes. I actually want this show. That's kind of mind-blowing to me. Okay, so can we jump forward then to season 3?
Yes.
Because I think I misunderstood. I had thought that when we interviewed Sharing, he said this was designed to be a 2-season thing, and season 3 was a bit of a like, okay, what do we do now? It sounds like that wasn't quite right. Like you had it in mind the whole time.
Yeah.
Well, I have this memory of somebody saying to me at some point during season 2, we just heard about this prison in South or Central America that it was kind of what they eventually based Sona off of, I think. And it was one of those, like, you're never going to believe this, but there's a prison where the guards just patrol the outside and the inmates run it inside. Did I make that memory up in my head? Like, what can you tell us about the season 3 development of it all?
No, that's an accurate memory, but it missed a couple of beats before it. So,
Okay.
Going back to sort of like the Craig Orwick and I'll take there was always intended, and we did during season 2, we're working towards the Catch Me If You Can model that now, exonerated, but now they have this guy that is like obviously a genius and can break out of any, like, what if there's a reason that they bring him in?
Oh, I see.
So that was always supposed to be the season 3. That's what we wanted to be season 3.
Gotcha.
Back then, everything was kind of like a 5-season model, or the let's get to 100 episodes.
Let's get to 100.
Yeah. You're charging for syndication, right?
Yeah. And even when I was first thinking this, and then when it first, then when we were all together, and it was always that was going to be season 3. It was Peter Liguori, the one that we just talked about, who brought us in. I think we had pitched out a season 3, and that I think started with like Michael is doing some sort of like, now he's making money, and like they're kind of still, but they're in Paris and kind of like an elite group. That's not outside the system. I think we just wanted to go to Paris and shoot in Paris.
Sure.
100%.
And then Peter came to us and said, you got to find a way to get them all back in prison. The show's called Prison Break. Like, get them back in prison. And so at first we're like, you know what? Let's just think about the Paris idea a little bit more and like really sell them on how great it is.
Totally. The Eiffel Tower could feel like a prison.
Yeah.
Could feel like, did you hear? And so
It's French. It's the prison of the mind. It's
the
very
prison of the, right.
existential.
It's an existential prison.
It's an existential
Aren't we
prison.
all in prison, Peter?
Right. Yeah. The final analysis.
There's a mime somewhere being like, no.
The prison.
The mime prison. Well, we didn't win that battle, and so then, when we really just locked in. Okay, well, like, so what can we do that feels different, and how do we get them all into a prison together? We'd already done some kind of, let's say, wackadoodle things that like suspended. Like we made moves for different reasons in the show that we could do kind of things that you're like, I don't know how that happened, but let's go for the ride. Like, I think we had earned some of that it was still in our universe, could make sense. And you jumped in and felt the emotions.
Wentworth used to call it a graphic novel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was like, we're making a graphic novel, which means there are going to be some things that, like, from frame 1 to frame 4, this happens. Just
go with it.
And
right.
Yeah.
Are you
then,
entertained?
I think the audience was there with us.
Yeah.
Are you entertained?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What did the writer, who was it, Karen Usher? Is that who said the thing about Sarah? Is that who said? She said, we would do these deep dives about how an actual prison works, but like how electricity worked, we don't really care.
Yeah.
Like we're just like, well, but then he hooks the thing up to the other thing, and
Right.
Yeah. Or like,
that was totally Karen.
Yeah. Science,
not so
like,
much. Yeah, who cares?
Yeah. How could you get all those tattoos off? Like, so like,
right.
But every, thankful to the audience that they kind of went with us. And so that's when we started to do research on, there was a prison in Bolivia, I think there was a prison in Brazil, that one of them, I can't remember, maybe it was in Bolivia, where there were like no guards.
Wow.
It was but it was a fortified prison where the prisoners created their own society with no rules,
Right.
Which is more scary than with rules. And then I think maybe the one in Bolivia was where there were guards, guarding the towers but they controlled nothing inside. And that seemed to be like, okay, a different flavor that the show, we didn't want to do a repeat of season 1.
It's so different.
So different,
like because we're not in it, we're watching this for the first time.
Yeah, we hadn't seen it.
So we right before we interviewed you, sat down and watched the pilot, and like the color temperature is different.
Yeah.
And I know we shot in Dallas. You shot in Dallas, but like it feels like such a different show. And season 1 to season 2 felt like a different show, but there's a whole new cast of characters.
Yeah.
There's so much like Spanish is being spoken a whole bunch, and like it
also feels
it's a really big reinvention.
It's a big reinvention, but also I think it's a great raising of the stakes, especially if you're going back into a prison, because the whole thing about Michael in the prison and for the audience is figuring out what is the power structure here.
Right.
What do we do with Pope? What do we do with Bellic?
Yeah.
What do we do with what was Stormar's name? Sarah.
Right.
Oh yeah, Abruzzi.
Yeah, the Abruzzi.
Totally.
Yeah,
there are all these power
like
structures.
all these
Warden,
things,
and there was
Yeah.
the and now it's like there is no template for him. He's starting from the very beginning again. There is no, this guy's the Bellic of this.
Is so much
Yeah.
higher.
The sense of threat is even higher, which seems almost impossible.
And things were literally life and death, like that. The writers did such an amazing job, including Matt Olmstead. Just of like
no relation,
brother.
But the of setting like, oh my God, you thought like prison was bad, like this prison, and where there's like it feels like you're back to medieval times and like Gladiator, and
not the restaurant medieval times.
Yeah,
right. It's very Lord of the Rings. It's very not Lord of the Rings. It's very Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies.
There we
Yes.
go.
Yes.
Yeah.
But with and that's, I would say that the fun of working on that was like trying to not do what we've already done. That was the challenge for us and the fun of us, and like, what does that world look? It was in Paris, but
it was definitively
does not look like Paris.
Dallas is many things.
Yeah,
it is not Paris.
No.
Although there is a Paris, Texas.
There is a Paris, Texas.
Yeah, it's
Fort
not.
Worth had some areas in the stockyards and stuff.
Yeah.
But and just I would say the additions in cast just really helped build that world. But if you remember that idea for season 4, in this way, sort of like the company is doing with Michael what the government will do in season 4. So you're starting to see him not do something for family, doing something. I mean, he is, because there's, sort of like there's the kidnapping, like there's, but it's you're able to see his genius in the, in doing something that is against his will.
And going back to the physical prison for a second, did you build that? Did it exist? Like
mostly built, yeah.
Mostly built,
yeah.
Because we
were
looking
in
at
Fort Worth mostly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense. You're such a fount of information. I want to go back to season 1 and 2, but I know that we're also talking about season 3 so much.
We also at some point do have to ask about season 6. And fans will have a bunch of questions about that. We have fan questions for you, which we should probably jump to pretty quickly. But real quick, because since the Olmstead came up, do you want to talk about?
You want to talk about your romantic thing? If you don't,
husband on the set or not? You don't have to.
Yeah, no. I listen. I always say,
because when we met you, you were not Don Olmstead.
No, I was Dawn Peruse, which is my maiden name. with Adelstein Peruse.
Right, Adelstein Peruse.
That you can watch you can see when it happens because my name changes.
Yeah, your name
on the
changes.
credits.
Yeah,
Totally.
it was a kind of like a Courtney Arquette Cox thing.
Yes.
Courtney Cox. Yeah,
I sort of love that, like, the great romance that happened on set
Oh.
had no actors involved.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, well, until
So
season
rare.
3, and we'll get to that later. But
Yeah.
like,
also, there's a great thing, especially for actors, because we are like essentially children in a good way and in a bad way. That
we
a
are
show,
not.
No comment.
a show becomes your family,
Yes.
and you're the children. And I remember from my perspective, we didn't talk about it that much because we're more obsessed with ourselves. And also, we were away. We weren't all in the same place, but it was like
You guys were in
mommy and
LA.
daddy fell in love and are getting married.
Yeah.
And it
I
made
remember-
sense because it was a closed circuit.
Yeah.
It felt really like correct. It felt like, oh, great.
This makes sense.
This makes the family whole.
Okay, so wait. So Paul writes the pilot.
Yes.
And then at some point they bring on Matt Olmstead. You bring on Matt Olmstead
Yeah. Actually,
to be kind of our head writer, or
yeah, to be like the real showrunner.
Right.
Because
I mean,
Paul hadn't run a show.
yeah, Paul
Right, 'cause
hadn't.
Paul
run
was a feature guy.
Yeah, Paul was a feature guy and was going to stay a feature. Like he had never done it before and was still, very much had a feature career. So Matt came on. Actually, the pickup to series, I think, was also like needed to have like somebody great coming on. He had run
sure.
NYPD Blue
God.
and
I mean,
a bunch of others. So he was definitely like a get. And
Huge.
and we had to bring another sort of EP on, one as a directing producer and then one to sort of like make sure that the trains were running on time. But just as far as like the creative.
And it was a wildly ambitious show back then.
Yes.
I mean,
and
the things that we did every week were not a week's work.
no. And for
It
the
was a
amount
lot.
of money that we did it for
Right.
was great. And someone to come on and know that we don't get to rest season 2. We have to reinvent completely each season, which the luxury of an ongoing series is that you build sets. You kind of like go in, and your life becomes easier. But
Not
on
ours,
this one.
not on
Harder.
this one. It just was
Nope.
like down. And we had like literally like a 4-week break in between seasons. I mean, it's when I look at like television today and the amount of time that we have to do this new prison break and the lack of time. So Matt and I met when he was hired. I interviewed him while I was doing another pilot with Paul Schering. It was like which didn't get picked up, but I remember just reading his stuff and being like, okay, this would be great if we got Matt Olmstead.
He's such a good writer.
He's such a good writer. And just his nickname is Steady. And that's what he is. He's like a very, and with something that was going to be this big and have this much sort of production and no normal roadmap of like, okay, rip from the headlines, let's do this, kind of reset. So, and also like as a phenomenal writer and a showrunner, which is, kind of a secret about a lot of showrunners who really wants to write, right? A lot of them at some point really like to run the show and don't.
Interesting.
I mean, he wrote episode 2. He created Teabag, right? You know, so he, so he comes on. Now I'm like, I have a newborn. So just as like important to my life was like someone who could really carry some weight, because otherwise it was a lot of like weight on my shoulders. And I'm not a writer. I'm a non-writing. I'm a creative producer. And so I always say like the first thing he's ever did for me was like allow me to spend more time with Wesley, who was a newborn.
That's really sweet.
Because
Beautiful.
it was, shit was being handled.
Yeah.
And season 2, we were, kind of both going through our own divorces, different times, but kind of similar circumstances. Although you know him, like he talks to no one about it. I talk to everybody about it because
Right.
like he's
Right.
like a like he's
He's
just
a vault.
He's a vault,
He's a
and
vault.
like there is like nothing personal being spoken about at any
Right.
time in his like work life. But I will say for all you single ladies out there, or someone's looking, if you really want to get to know somebody, launch a show where literally people are constantly telling you, both at the network and studio, like, if this doesn't work, I'm going to get fired. So I think by the time we started dating, like, there was no surprises. We knew, like, you see the best and the worst of each other before.
You pressure tested your relationship.
Yeah.
Before
I mean, it's why actors. It's why people fall in love on sets too.
Yeah, because
You're kind of in a again, war's not like you're in the Super Bowl together.
Yes.
You know, it is like it is intense, and you're together, and it's heightened, and it's important.
The rest of the world looks different.
And the rest of
you
the
know
world,
what I mean? Like you're sharing something that really you only understand from the inside.
Yes, that's right.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
very romantic.
It was, and then I had the why Prison Break. Besides, professionally, it's been great, and but personally, like I had 2 kids on during that show. Shyla is always like, Prison Break is my origin story. So she was born during season 4. And it's the gift that keeps on giving. Like, then my kids grew up and watched it.
Let's jump forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
So huge success, Prison Break, huge success. You shepherd it. You go on to do other equally, if not more impressive things, running studios and shepherding imposters, things that are cultural touchstones that will go on forever, like imposters.
Imposters is like
imposters.
Season
guys,
25.
High watermark.
Shut this podcast off and go watch Imposter.
High watermark. And then when does the idea of, I'm sure that people were approaching you for a reboot from the last edit of the last episode. Well, let's do it again.
Yeah.
Give us the origin story of the Prison Break that will be coming out. Like, how did it?
Season 6. Or not
season 6.
New show.
Yeah.
Yeah. New show. So,
because you're one of the only people involved from the original, right? Like, it's different writers, it's different cast, like it's a whole.
Yeah. I mean, there's
revision.
like other people are named producers, but because I was there from the very beginning, and it's I am usually the one that the studio will say, like, we're still looking, or one of the actors or writers comes to me with an idea, and then we'll go. And sometimes, over the years, we've thought something was good, and the sort of the studio or at the time, it was always, thought that Fox was going to do it. And after the first years of like, okay, what is a sequel, a prequel, a spinoff? There was lots of begging for a Teabag spinoffs by certain people.
They kind of did Breakoff Kings.
Yeah,
Breakout
Kings.
a little bit.
Matt did. And so I think there was a big desire for it. And sometimes it would be us saying, I don't like see that. And then other times. And then with the 5th season, I got a call, like, we want to do sort of a limited, and do you think, and it was right while I was making Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce. I wasn't running the studio, UCP yet. I was doing it with Paul, but I was.
Who was that call from?
Probably Dana or Pat or someone from
it came from the studio.
It would come from
Gotcha.
that one. It was or someone from the studio would call me. This was 10 years ago. I don't remember. And then usually I would talk to Sharon Klein, who's the head of casting for everything Disney TV related. And she would say, do you think, Wentworth and
Right.
Sarah,
Dom.
like Dom, do you think that they would be? And I would be like, well, let me make some phone calls. And so, and then by the time it would become a reality with the fifth one, I wasn't able to work on because I had just taken over this studio. And I was like deep in, I think our pilot for The Sinners was just about to be like greenlit, which is something I had been working on as a producer and brought it over to the studio, and Mr. Robot was launching. So I was knee deep in this new thing, and I had an out in my deal for Prison Break, but I opted not to do it because there was just too much going on at the studio.
You're running a studio.
Yeah.
But I was able, I was running a studio, and it was
enough.
But Paul and I kind of like really worked on like what the idea would be, and did a lot. Sarah, I called all the reps and got the team back together. All the writers, all the other writers were in big overall deals, not at the studio, and so couldn't, nobody else could kind of work on it. Thankfully, they'd all been so successful that they either had their own shows or were in competing studios. So, and they were not going to.
On the acting side,
we
had to get permission from the shows we were on.
Yes.
Because I remember then calling Carlton Cuse and being like, hey, and he was like, sorry, we're married and you want to date someone else? And I was like, I do. I want to date my ex.
Yes.
And so it was a lot of work to put that together.
And thankfully, I was also working on Colony too as a studio head.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
I was like, well, the studio approves of her doing double time. Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. I never heard that. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Right.
But I will say that it was very hard to, I came up for like the cast dinner, and which
at Lupo, I remember that.
And for one day of shooting, and then kind of just said goodbye, and that was really hard. And after that, I like vowed never to do that again. To never like not be a part of something, because I'm so intertwined personally and professionally with Prison Break. So if there was going to be another one, I really definitely wanted to be a part of it in the way I was in the original, because it was really hard to watch your baby being raised by somebody else.
Yes.
And so there were always, every year, I would say, and I would say there were always an opportunity to be heard if there was a great idea. This was incoming. Carrie Burke, who is one of my best friends, and we work outside of the industry, also in a company, called me up and said, what about a brand new Prison Break? And with a whole new idea, and would you start thinking about that? And she was like, we have some ideas for writers. Once again, all the original people were off doing in different deals, and they really wanted the writer to come from their studio, because they had this like arsenal of like amazing writers. And it was Carrie. We talked a lot of writers, but she called me and she was like, I want you to have lunch with Elgin James. I think the two of you are going to love each other. And at this point, I was the CEO of Anonymous Content, but when I made that deal, I had the clause that if Prison Break that place was more, I was running, but the founder of, who unfortunately had passed a couple of years before I got there, would produce and run the company. So, and I had it in my deal that if Prison Break happens, I would produce it while doing the job. And so I had lunch with Elgin, and I think we had a 2-hour lunch. We barely spoke.
And he was the showrunner of Mayans.
Yeah, he's the showrunner, co-creator of Mayans. And and we just like we kind of knew within the first 30 minutes. He was a fan of Prison Break. He had been in prison and heard, like, knew, because I think we all knew, and it's not talked about a lot, but prisoners, like people who are in prison right now, love Prison Break.
Yep.
And
so wild.
It was always so crazy to me that
wild.
we would see images of them watching Prison Break in prison. I was like,
oh my God.
Wanted to call the warden. Is that a good idea?
Right.
Yeah. Like, do you let them watch the Riot episode?
Yeah, anyway.
Sure.
But they did, and one of a niche Prison Break fandom is actual prisoners, which always made us feel great. So we barely talked a bit, but both of us on the way home from the lunch called Carrie and said, I said, let's stop the search. He's the one. And he thankfully was like, yeah, I think, I think I want to do this. And so, which is no small thing, right? To take on something that will be a brand new, on such a, sort of like a popular show, which, as you guys know, has such a avid fan base, and to do something completely new. But all the things that we talked about of like, what's the DNA that we're trying to capture? Like, in a brand new story, like, what do we wish it could be? And he kind of, and then we had a second, so then it was like, okay, we're going to do this together. And then our second meeting, he had sort of pitched me the lead character. And
at the first meeting or at the second meeting?
Second meeting. We didn't talk about Prison Break. I had pitched him shooting at where we wind up, which was West Virginia Penitentiary in Moundsville, because I had shot there a few years before doing Prison Break, a show called Fear. It was my first episode of Fear. And the original, I'd wanted to shoot there, but in West Virginia, Pittsburgh wasn't quite as built up with tax credits, and production was like, no, you need to find some place. And I was like, well, it needs to be sort of gothically beautiful. And then Joliet was found in Satsua, and they were able to get the tax sort of like credit there, and that's why Joliet, it was because it was kind of a good dupe for Moundsville. I was like, but this time we actually shot in
amazing
in that one, and it's so cinematic. And Elgin also then fell in love with it. He like Googled it, and there's lots of like tours that go on there now and other things that shot, so you could see a lot of it just online. So we had the character, and we knew where we were going to shoot this, West Virginia, and then kind of went on from there.
So I want to be mindful of your time. We're going to take a quick break.
And then
you just stay right where you are. And then we'll ask a couple of fan questions. We'll be very surgical.
And then we'll let you go.
Great.
Yes.
Office.
We have some fan questions from you from our Discord community, our Patreon community. And there was a lot of great questions. But let's see. We tried to gauge them. We tried to filter them towards season 3, because that is in fact what this will be connected to. Do you remember biggest production challenges of season 3? This is from one of our watchers called Amore.
The biggest, I think, making it feel like Panama, but we're shooting in Texas. Making it feel like you are in a place that is not in this country, and that the walls feel real. And I think just the immersive nature, pulling that off was the biggest production concern. I think for us internally, I'm sure the studio would be like, no, it was that helicopter thing, it was making it feel like a real place.
It's interesting. One of the questions somebody has here, Cherie Knights, Cherie, is what would you say the essential themes of Prison Break are that you made it emblematic, and that you're doing in the reboot? And I think you just said that, which is what are you willing to do for family? It's really really interesting. And I love how that gets it plays out in so many of the relationships of Prison Break.
Yeah.
Not
And
just the main ones.
Yes. I would say thematically, that's the number one thing. And family can mean friends too, right?
Absolutely. Found family, love,
Chosen family,
chosen
100%.
family, making it feel grounded and real, but then also thematically Shakespearean, so that the twists and turns of the emotional life of the show are as big as the twists and turns of the thriller and action and violence.
And we've talked about that a lot, especially with some of the directors we've had on, that like all of the big fancy set pieces, they don't mean anything if the two people talking to each other in the room aren't telling the truth. And that was something that I think the writer's room was so good at, is you'd have these giant riots and set pieces and all of that, but then you just get two people talking in a room and their hearts were right here.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that mattered. I mean, as we were rewatching the first episode, like the Mahone journey in season 3 is so fascinating.
Yeah.
And
upsetting. I find it really upsetting.
Yeah.
He's fallen so far.
Yeah. But so well done. I mean, Bill's such a brilliant actor.
Yeah.
So good. I mean, so good. Yeah, I think you always and the writers on the first one and the writers on this one hopefully too are that everybody is a fully realized person.
Yeah.
In the good, the bad, the secret, the out in the open, that they've had a journey through life that is flawed, and awe, so that whenever you're looking there, someone really does have an emotional Achilles heel and an inner strength that hasn't been tapped yet. Right.
I like that a lot. I've got one. This
yes.
one interests me here. This somebody, Katharina, wrote in, taking the example of both Sarah and Michael's deaths and resurrection, what role did fan opinion play in the realization of the 5 seasons and the development of the storylines? How do creators, writers, and producers view and deal with the fact that fans want to influence the course of a show? And what are the challenges? That's obviously a PhD of a question, but I think, the sort of essence of it, of like how, because one of the things that we talked about a lot when we were rewatching season 1 is like television without pity was just coming out. And there was, with the emergence of that kind of social media, there was a conversation between fans and the material that was new culturally in that moment.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak to that at all? The way fans may or may not have influenced, or did you like really shut your ears to it in the writer's room and be like, we can't let any of this in. We're just going to make our show.
No, I think, in most, not just Prison Break, but in a lot of shows, like fans really matter. And hopefully everybody on that writer's room or that office is also a fan of your own show,
Of course.
And that there are like, and when a show is really working and as far as like a team, you will also have like super fans of one character and sometimes it's a writer and they are advocating and coming up and for a lot of us, it wasn't our first show. So I think we had learned that on other shows that you really want to have someone in the room that is like obsessed with one of the characters, right? And is finding ways and will be heartbroken if they die and like constantly pitching.
Totally.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So going back to what you were saying earlier about the graphic novel nature, I think we knew we had the leeway. So when there, I'm sure it was part of it, but that was a room with such a good gut that when they trusted their gut and it can be, oh, hey, this happened but now the show itself, the story is missing them. And we have license to kind of do things that make it work for us, you know. And, you know, I think that there was always a willing to consider it. There was no one sitting there and be like, well, that just doesn't make any sense. It'd be like,
Yeah,
no.
you're talking to two actors who played characters who died
Yes.
and then undied.
Yep.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just like that kind of became our thing.
Yes.
But you can get away with it, I think, in that graphic novel world.
I've been on different shows as a writer where you're assigned a character to kind of keep an eye out for, which is great in terms of watching the arc of a character over the course of a season or even an episode. But alliances form emotionally.
Yeah.
Right.
That are, you know,
organically,
and people like, you know, like you said, everybody who works in that building has an opinion, is a fan and has an opinion. And that is the gut that you're talking about, because ultimately we're all fans of it. And it's like, no, we need this person. They have to get their comeuppance, or they have to get their revenge, or they have to fall in love. It's just, and that's great. And that's what makes a show
amazing.
It's so like, you know, I will say that it's always really surprising, you know, sometimes where the fans really go, and
like towards the pedophile,
towards Teabag. And I think, you know, looking back at that first season, you know, because we're watching it too. We, you know, we shoot it, we cast, and then we're in the edit room. We're like, well, that pops.
Yeah.
And then it makes it like there. I will say at the beginning of the writers' room, there was no, there wasn't sort of like, and then we're going to kind of get to know the backstory of Teabag. I think we started early on really getting interested in these characters that we knew less of, and wanted to dimensionalize them by like kind of giving, like Bellick is also like one of my favorite characters. And when we go home with him and learn he's, you know, living with his mom, and, you know, he
trying to date.
We were like, that's where you have the writer's room. Like, he needs to be in Panama. Like, how do we get him to Panama? You know, because we could have, you know, there were plenty, but.
And it's so hard to watch what happens to him. Like him in that rain poncho. I'm just like,
I know.
I also love Wade so much as a human being. Like there's part, it's wonderful writing, but you're just like, no,
help him.
No,
somebody help him. I think it's worth pointing out that yesterday I read a quick article. That
you read?
No, somebody was sorry. Somebody was reading
reads it for
somebody
him.
was reading to me. That people were up in arms because I guess there was a picture released of the Duffler brothers writing the last season of Stranger Things, and on one of somebody blew up the computer, and there's like all these Reddit tabs open.
Oh, interesting.
Also, ChatGPT, which they're now getting a lot of shit for, but like, whatever. But it's funny that they were like, no, we don't read the Reddit stuff, and that like in the actual thing, they were like kind of
hysterical,
checking in on it.
Yeah.
Checking in on stuff.
Of course I mean.
Of course.
Yeah, like and Reddit's a wealth of information when you know, especially for, you know, I don't remember everything. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
100%.
That's, you know, so interesting. But, you know, listen, we, as the three of us know, and anybody who's involved, like, we have great fans.
Yeah, we really do. Dawn, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Joy, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
It's really great to see you. And one word answer, we have a question we ask every single guest.
Oh, yeah.
And this season are, and as many words as you want, but it can be one. If you were locked up, who would you want to come break you out?
We know the answer.
Oh, Matt Olmstead.
Matt Olmstead.
Well, I don't know.
First of all,
maybe she's got a cousin
Matt
from
Olmstead.
Bay Ridge that she's like, it's got to be Johnny
I think
Two
Matt
Nuts.
Olmstead might be my answer.
I want him to write my breakout.
I want him. Yes, all of it.
I don't know if
the big O.
Fair enough. Hey, listen, Dawn. I know that you just said like an hour and a half ago that this started because you were a little bit worried that you might someday go to prison. I hope you don't.
Yeah, don't.
You're a service
or
to the entertainment
if I do,
community.
It's for a good cause because I did something for my family.
As we say 2 seasons ago, if you do go, establish dominance quickly.
Yeah, we'll come get you. Don't worry.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
and a small thing. But you, early in my career, were one of the very few women who I saw occupy a certain kind of power. So Thank you very much for that because, you lit the way and now I get to walk down it in a way that matters quite a lot to me. So thank you.
Well,
All
I
the
will
love.
say to you that you were one of the first women and this was 20 years ago, who was asking for equality with the men.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
you
Big
guys.
love.
Big love.
Enjoy New
Big
York.
love to you
Bye.
too.
Talk
Bye,
to you
guys.
soon.
Say hi to Matt
Say
for
hi to
us.
Matt.
I will.
Right.
Before we wrap out, we have a special birthday shout out to Georgie Bowen, one of our beautiful Discord folks. So happy birthday, Georgie.
Yes.
And
Happy birthday, Georgie. And thank you, Don Olmstead, for joining us.
Yeah.
Fascinating as we knew. Hey, Sarah.
Yes, Paul.
Prison Breaking with Sarah and Paul has been brought to you in partnership with Hulu. Thank you, Hulu.
Your hosts have been inmates Sarah Wayne Callies and Paul Adelstein.
Our warden is producer Ben Haber. Cutting
us up in the prison yard is editor Kevin Mackler.
And the front man of the Jailhouse Rock Band is yours truly, Paul Adelstein, who made all the music.
Prison Industries staff Ariel Zhu and Ro Brooks work on our socials.
Prison Yard tattoo artist, logo brand designer is John Nunziato and Little Big Brands. Check them out at www.littlebigBrands.com.
You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Prison Break Podcast, or you can email us at pbpodcast@caliber-studio.com, or you can call us, leave us a voicemail at 4013-PBREAK.
Prison Breaking with Sarah and Paul has been a Caliber Studio production. Thank you for listening. And join our Patreon community so you can ask our guests questions.
Woot woot. Thanks, everybody. We'll see
you next time.
Episode 2. Ciao.